'tis the season for freezer meals. To be fair, there really isn't any off-season for freezer meals, but you are joining us in the kitchen. We are going to be making some marinades to start off this video. We have been accumulating family-sized packs of drumsticks for a while, and that we just find, we get them at Aldi, and typically we buy them when they are at 50% off because they need to be used or frozen by the next day, so we buy them when we freeze them. So we currently have 4 family-sized packs of drumsticks, and that's a lot. And we're gonna make some freezer meals out of them, and out of those 4 packs, we're gonna get 6 different meals out of them. I have gallon baggies to use, and we're basically just gonna set this up and go down the line. I have had the drumsticks thawing overnight in the fridge. They're all hanging out there. Now, they are all still mostly frozen, and that's what I want, because I only want them thawed enough so I can separate the drumsticks. And because we were starting to thaw them in the fridge, they can still be refrozen raw, and we don't have to worry about anything like any bacteria or anything like that starting to grow on them, because they've only been thawing in the fridge, and they're gonna be going right back in the freezer. So that's totally fine, but I'm gonna set you up and get started on the marinades. Well, first I'm gonna write on the bags what I'm making and fill you in on those and start getting the drumsticks separated into the bags for the marinades. All right, here are the bags of meat ready to go. We are doing 2 Hawaii teriyaki chickens. We are doing 2 honey mustard chickens, a balsamic, and a Greek chicken. One of the Hawaii teriyaki chicken bags we are going to be actually leaving in the fridge because we're having that for dinner tomorrow, but having it marinate overnight is going to be delicious. And then we're doing 2 of the honey mustard because we did honey mustard this same marinade on some chicken thighs in the first bulk freezer meal video that I made, and we had that the other night. We thawed it and baked them and ate it, and that is a fantastic marinade. It's delicious. So we're doing 2 of those. And then we've had the Greek chicken marinade, and that's good. And I don't think we've actually done the balsamic chicken one, so I think that's a new one. But let me set you up and walk you through the ingredients for all of these. We're starting off with the Hawaii teriyaki chicken, and it's called Hawaii teriyaki chicken because this was a state recipe that we did for Hawaii. We are going to add to each one of these bags 1 cup of soy sauce. I just realized Dan made a very good point that I should actually be mixing all of this together in a bowl and not the bag, and then I can mix the ingredients and then pour them in the bag. So we're gonna switch and do that instead. 1 cup of brown sugar, 1 cup of pineapple juice, 4 cloves of garlic diced up, and 1 tablespoon of ginger minced up. All right, yep, and then we'll mix all of that up and pour it into our bag. All right, and then I'm gonna close this off. And gently mix it up to make sure it doesn't break open on me, because that would be disastrous. Next up is the honey mustard chicken thighs. So these, the marinade is 1/4 cup of mustard, 1/4 cup of olive oil, 1/4 cup of honey, 3 garlic cloves, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and a 1/4 teaspoon of oregano. All right, then we're gonna get this all mixed up. Moving on to the Greek chicken marinade, we will add 5 cloves of garlic, a 1/2 cup of olive oil, 2 teaspoons dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons dried thyme, 1/2 teaspoon dried rosemary, the zest of 2 lemons, 1/2 cup of fresh lemon juice, 1 tablespoon of dried parsley. Mix all this up and pour it in. Mix it all up. All right, and Last up on our marinade lists for today is a balsamic chicken. So we need a half a cup of olive oil, a half a cup of balsamic vinegar, a quarter cup of honey, 2 teaspoons dried oregano, 1 tablespoon of dried basil, and 2 garlic cloves. All right, we're gonna mix this up and then pour it in. Mix this up. And just like that, we have 6 different marinades ready to go. It is very exciting. Like I said, one of these, this one we're gonna keep in the fridge and eat it tomorrow. The other 5 are gonna go in the freezer, and that's 5 more meals. Welcome back into the kitchen. Today we are making several different freezer meals, and I do not usually like doing multiple different meals at one time because it can get overwhelming. There can be a lot of time involved in that. Usually I like just making, if I'm making one thing, I make it 3 times at the same time, and I save time overall doing that. Tonight we are not doing it that way because we had a whole freezer in the turkey. That's what I almost just said. We had a whole turkey in the freezer that we had gotten for a really good price back closer to Thanksgiving time, and we had a second one that we used for Thanksgiving, and this one I decided we were going to cook it up and use the meat for freezer meals. So we cooked the whole turkey yesterday?
No.
Yesterday was Thursday.
We cooked it Tuesday, right?
Wednesday.
What? Cooked it Wednesday? Yes, Wednesday.
Yes.
That's right. Wednesday morning.
I'm glad we know our timelines.
You have a baby. Give us a break.
So we cooked the whole turkey on Wednesday, and then Wednesday night, Dan worked on carving the whole turkey and getting all of the meat off of the bones, and not counting the wings or the drumsticks, which he kept whole just to eat. We had just a little over 6 pounds of cooked meat to work with. So we divvied all of that up, and we made enchilada soup yesterday for dinner that we enjoyed with the fresh turkey, and then we divvied the rest of it up into 3/4 pound portions, and that is what we are using for freezer meals today. I currently have some egg noodles going. This is a leftover bag that we had with about 3/4 pound of turkey in it. I have the canned goods. I have then green pepper and some frozen onion. And all of this put together is going to make our California casserole. And that is going to be a freezer meal in and of itself. And that's very simple because once I drain them, I can just throw everything into this pot, stir it up, grab a tin to pour it in, let it cool, and freeze it. Very simple. So that is one of them that we are making that I am working on right now. Dan is over here currently working on some sub sandwiches for himself using these Kaiser rolls, and there are 6 of those, so we purposefully left deli rolls.
Rolls,
Thank
whatever.
you. Yeah, whatever.
Close enough.
We purposefully left some of the chicken breast in really good sandwich pieces. And oh wow, with those 6 and there's still all that was left over. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Evidence.
Okay. So Dan is making those. Those are not going to be for a dinner. Those are purely going to be for if Dan wants to take 1 or 2 of them with him to work for lunches, or if we have a leftovers night but we're running a little low on leftovers and he decides he wants to pull one out to eat it. That's basically what those are for. So I'm just letting him add whatever he wants to them. So he has the turkey. I also bought a whole ham, not a whole ham,
Shank.
Ham shank. So he's gonna add a little bit of ham to those subs, and then we're gonna be divvying all of that up, and we might be making some freezer meals with that pretty soon as well. Or we might just be freezing it in pound and half-pound increments. I'm not quite sure yet. I need to check out these noodles. Holy cow, stand by. So definitely overcooked those egg noodles a little bit, but it'll be fine. So now I just need to finish chopping up the turkey bits that we have into small little pieces, and then just pour everything in there and mix it up, and that's a freezer meal done. All right, and just like that, here is the California casserole. Again, I don't know why it's named that, but there it is, all ready to go. You can also cover the top with cheese. I'm not having dairy right now. We're just gonna leave the cheese off, and that's very simple. Also, I've never frozen this before, so we're just gonna see how it goes. I'm sort of just operating off of the assumption that it'll be totally fine, because there's nothing in this that I've not frozen in other meals before that is also fine. So I'm just, yeah, winging it. There's that. It's already cooled down, so I can just wrap it up and have it ready to go. Dan has his sandwiches all here and ready to go, and they look great. So I think basically all we do with those now is wrap them up in tin foil and throw them in the freezer. We'll probably put them in a bag just to keep them together. And he is working on finishing carving up the ham. And if you have any recommendations for really good meals that feature ham in them, let me know, because I kind of approach ham as like an addition to a meal and not like the main protein in a meal. And so I think when we go to freeze this, we're probably just going to freeze it as pound or half pound bags so that we can pull them out and use them in addition to other things. But if you have any recipes that you highly recommend using ham and they're also freezer meal friendly, let me know. So we're gonna get that going, and then we're gonna get started on a soup. Casserole's ready to go in the oven. I went ahead and put Dan's subs in 2 different gallon bags, and I used a sticky note to say what they are, because these gallon bags are really just there for like extra protection in the freezer. And so once he uses the subs and takes them out, these bags will be still like practically brand new, so we can reuse it for something else entirely and not have to worry about like crossing off marker that was on the bag or anything. So that is there. Now, the only other thing that I plan on getting accomplished tonight is this soup. And this is a very simple like vegetable soup with turkey in it. So I'm just going to get some butter melting in this pan, and then I'm going to chop up some onion and celery and carrot and toss that into the pan along with some garlic, saute it for a couple minutes, and then add the broth, add the turkey, add the seasonings, get all of that mixed up well, and then shut off the heat. And once it's like totally cooled, I'm gonna put it in a Ziploc baggie, seal it, make room in one of the freezers so it can lay down flat to freeze, and then we'll have soup ready to go as well. And there is the turkey vegetable soup in a gallon baggie. So I've cleared a spot in the freezer that I'm going to put that in laying down so that it can freeze like that and not take up a bunch of room. But that is all we are accomplishing tonight. I will be tuning back in tomorrow because we are going to be making some chicken pot pie, and I'm actually going to be experimenting with something new as well tomorrow. So make sure, talking as if I'm ending the video here. It's going to be like a second for you. It's going to be tomorrow for me. So I will see you tomorrow. Also, I am going to do my best to try to put recipes that I am following for all of these in the description box. I don't think I've been doing that with these freezer meals, so I'm going to be going back to the last like 2 freezer meal videos that I made and checking the description, and if there are not links to recipes there, I'm going to be adding them. So if there's any of these recipes that I am making that you want to check out, that you want to make for yourself, they will be in the description. Welcome to the next day. We are going to be making a triple batch of chicken pot pie filling, and my goal is to make pie crust to have a chicken pot pie pie for tonight for dinner. And then I would like to make a second full pie to freeze, and then the third that's left over put into a gallon baggie to freeze that way so that we can serve it over biscuits. And my hope is to also make some biscuits to freeze so we can experiment with those, because I've never made biscuits and frozen them. And from videos that I've watched, basically you make them, get them ready, like cut them and put them on a tray, but then you freeze them uncooked, and then you can bake them from frozen. So that's what I'm gonna experiment with. But the first thing we have to do is take the remainder of these potatoes that I have, wash them off good, and then I am just going to microwave them. I'm gonna stab a couple holes in them and throw them in the microwave just to get them all softened, because I don't want to like go through the hassle of baking them or anything like that. So that's what I'm gonna do with these, and then we can jump to the next step.
Here, they're very hot. Don't touch it. They're very hot. Mm-hmm. Very, very hot. You have to be very careful. Mm-hmm.
Potatoes are out of the microwave. I'm letting them cool. I'll cut them up in a couple minutes. But getting started on this, we have, because I'm tripling this recipe, we have about 3/4 cup of butter in this pot. I am going to get that on so that can all start melting. And then to that pot, we are going to add almost a whole head of garlic. So I will dice that up momentarily. And then the remainder of the diced onions that I have, because I used all the fresh onions in recipes yesterday. So we're just going to use all the rest of these diced onions that we have in the freezer. And that'll be roughly tripled what the recipe calls for. We're going to add those two and then get it all sauteed up.
There she goes. Okay.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So we're gonna let this cook down and just kind of give a little bit of color to that. And then we will add in some flour and get like the roux going, and then we can add in all the rest of the goodies. But while that is cooking down, I'm going to be working on getting these potatoes diced up and ready to go. And I purposefully undercooked these slightly because I don't want the potatoes just completely falling apart into mush in my chicken pot pie. I want there to be a little substance there. So I'm just gonna get all these diced and then we will add flour into there. All right, so that is cooked down enough, so we're gonna go ahead and add the flour in, get that all nice and mixed up. Oh, that is thickening beautifully. So we're gonna get all of that flour incorporated. Oh, look at how thick that got. That looks so good. And then we are going to slowly add in our water. And I'm gonna start with just a little bit at a time. Yeah, because you want it to thicken right back up. Oh, look at that. I am so excited. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add the last 4 cups. Okay, and I know it looks really, really liquidy now, but we have so much more to add, it will be totally fine. And also cannot forget the chicken bouillon, because I do not have any homemade chicken broth. Otherwise, I would have done that instead of just water and bouillon. Get that mixed in. And then really the only seasonings other than the saltiness from the bouillon is parsley and pepper to taste. So I always just eyeball it. And I typically will go a little lighter handed on the pepper because I think the pepper flavor intensifies after we freeze it. At least it did one time that we froze it. And I couldn't tell if it was because it was frozen and that like amplified the flavor, or if it was because we just added too much pepper to begin with. But so I'm just gonna add those and eyeball it. I've never measured that part, so I don't really know what to tell ya. And I think that's an appropriate amount of pepper.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That just needs to cook a little bit, and then we can add the rest of the ingredients. Now for the very easy part of just dumping in the rest of the ingredients. So we have a bunch of turkey. So we're gonna just toss in all of this turkey and give that a good stir. And then I'm gonna start with this amount of potatoes. I think I cooked up a few too many potatoes, so we're just gonna kind of eyeball and start with this many. Yeah, I don't know if I want to add any more potato, but we'll add the veggies first, just to double check. And then I just do mixed vegetable freezer bags, like frozen bags, because you can get them for like $1. So I am just going to add 3 of these. Oh yeah, look at this. So that is there's a ton of turkey, a ton of potato, a ton of vegetable, and look at how creamy and delicious it still is. I'm going to just let that cook on low. I need to put Elliot to bed, and when I come back downstairs, we will get started on some pie crusts. All right, I know I said once I put Elliot to bed, we were going to make some pie crust, but I am too hungry to go through rolling out pie crust and then waiting for the whole pie to bake for like 20 minutes or so. So instead, we are going to make the biscuits first, and I'm gonna just make a double batch, and we're gonna freeze half of them and cook the other half, and then just have the pot pie over the biscuits because I am hungry. So let's get started on that. Okay, and keep in mind I am doubling this, so we're gonna do 4 cups of flour, 5 teaspoons of baking powder, teaspoon of salt, 2/3 of a cup of shortening, and then we're going to mix all of this up with the pastry blender. And once you get that totally mixed up in this nice crumbly texture, we're going to add our milk and then use a wooden spoon to get a nice dough. All right, once I have the flour as incorporated with the wooden spoon as I can, I just turn it onto a lightly floured surface, and I'm just gonna knead the rest of that flour in and maybe add a little more, just kind of depending on the consistency. But you see how it's still kind of flaky and falling apart and sticking to my hand. You don't really want it sticking to your hand. So I am just going to kind of knead all the rest of this together, make sure all of that flour is incorporated. I'm gonna put a little bit of flour onto the surface. This is what the dough is looking like once it is totally rolled out. It looks very good. It's not sticky. Set that there. And we are going to start rolling this out. And typically I roll them out to be about 3/4 of an inch thick, like they're pretty thick, but this one I rolled a little less, so this is probably about 1/2 of an inch. And this is a 2.5 inch cookie cutter, and I'm just going to, or biscuit cutter, I guess, technically. I'm just gonna dip it in a little bit of flour and start cutting out as many of these as I can. And then just repeat, roll this out, and until you have all the biscuits made. All right, I went ahead and I put 12 in the oven. I'm gonna have to, I think, make this recipe again because even doubled, it didn't even make 20 biscuits. So I'm gonna do all that off camera, but those are in the oven and they're going to be delicious when they come out. Here they are, fresh out of the oven. You can see how much more they rise because yeah, these are like twice the size that they were when I rolled them out. But look at how just beautiful and flaky those are. And then they just rip apart so easily. We still have to separate all of that. But like I said, I need to eat. Toss that on there. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. Supper is done, and I have changed my mind on how we're going about freezing some of this. Dan and I both agree that having the pot pie over freshly baked biscuits is not only simpler, but hands down tastier than going through and making the pie crust. Hands up.
Sorry. I would not go quite so far as to say hands down tastier. Like, because the pie crust, make no mistake, is, like, good.
It is very good,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, to say that the flavor is that much improved over the pie crust, I think might be a little bit of an overstatement.
Yeah, okay.
But, yes, weighed all things in. Like, yeah. I would, as far as flavor goes, I might consider them equal. That's just me, but I think it's good. Very good. Much simpler.
Dan's keeping me from exaggerating too much, as
Very
I am wont to do. So, what we are going to do is, like I had said, I've doubled the biscuit recipe, and I really need to just change all the proportions in my recipe to doubled so that is a single batch, because it does not make that many biscuits. And we baked 12. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and a runt left. So what I'm going to do is we're going to experiment, and instead of me making more biscuits right now, we are just going to freeze these, and then tomorrow I'll pull them out of the freezer. I'll record it for you guys so you can come along with this experiment. And we're just gonna bake them right in the oven from frozen and see how they cook and see if it works just fine. I've never done this before. I've seen people do this all the time and they're like, yeah, it's perfect. But I'm always skeptical because I myself have not done it. So we're gonna experiment with that. If it works out really well, then I'm going to make at least one more double batch of biscuits to freeze. And then instead of making pie crust to make full chicken pot pies, we are going to take this mixture, and some of it we are going to stick in the fridge because we want leftovers, and the rest of it we are going to divvy up between 2 different gallon-sized freezer bags to freeze. And then if those biscuits work out well, we'll be freezing a bunch of those. So when we're ready to cook them, then we can just pull a bag of the chicken pot pie out of the freezer, let it thaw overnight, put it in a pot like this to let it like just warm back up, and toss some biscuits directly in the oven, and then we have a delicious home-baked meal. So you'll be joining me tomorrow when we experiment with those biscuits. I am just going to put them in a gallon baggie as is, because they will, well, I might throw them in the freezer just so they kind of get frozen on the outside and then throw them into a baggie. That way they don't get misshapen and stuff, because I don't want them to get completely squished together. So I think I'll do that. You will join me tomorrow when we are baking them from frozen. It is the next day, but nighttime. We got home from church today, and we ended up having somebody come over for lunch. Well, 2 somebodies actually. 2 guys came over for lunch, and we all just kind of hung out and just had good fellowship. And then the one guy left, and then the other guy was here. I keep saying guy, like they're our friends. The other friend was here. He was here all day helping us with a project. And so as a result, I did not film any of making the biscuits. I was very self-conscious and did not want to film in front of them because, yeah, I was just very self-conscious. All I did was take clips of the frozen biscuits on the tray. It was already preheated to the 425 degrees that it calls for, and I put it on for about 5 minutes longer than the recipe when you're just making them scratch and putting them right in calls for. And we probably could have done with only putting them on for like 2 or 3 minutes longer, but they went right in frozen. And then as you can see, they came out looking fantastic, and they taste as if we had just like put them together and thrown them right in the oven. So probably not tonight, but at some point I'm going to be making a lot of biscuits and throwing them in the freezer. I'll probably throw that clip on in this video before this video goes up so you guys can see that as well. But yeah, 10 out of 10 recommend getting biscuits prepared and throwing them in the freezer, because then you just have biscuits whenever. It is many days later, but I have finally gotten some time to make these biscuits to freeze. I just made a quadruple recipe of the flaky biscuit recipe that I have, and I don't know, I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't get very many biscuits when I make this recipe, no matter how hard I try. I thought quadrupling it was gonna get me like 4 dozen, maybe with a couple left over. No, quadrupling it got me this many, which is 35. One shy of 3 dozen. I'm still going to absolutely like freeze those and save those, but I was hoping to get 2 dozen per the gallon baggie worth of pot pie mix. Here is the last recipe freezer meal for this video, are these flaky biscuits. I have not baked them yet. All I did was make the dough, roll it out, and cut them into the shapes. I'm gonna stick these in the freezer so they can flash freeze, and then I'm gonna put them into gallon baggies, probably about 2 dozen in one baggie, and then the remainder, almost a dozen, in another bag. But that is the end of this freezer meal video, so thank you for coming along with me. If you enjoy these videos, consider subscribing to my channel, because I enjoy making them and there will be more in the future. And I also have a handful you can go check out as well while you wait for my next upload that will be coming this following Sunday. So, have a great day. I will see you in the next video. Bye.